Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? I just got to get my coffee, though. I was a little late, but I want to give the whole system time for people to come in, something to do while people come in. So my coffee's pouring itself. I'll be right back. Pause. Enjoy the thumbnail. There we go, team. There we go. Morning, all Bitcoiners. Sup, Nolan. Sup, Edwin. Hope you're doing well, my man. Hope you're doing well. We're getting people in. That's good news. It's working. It's working. Got to make sure. All right, team. Indeed. Things are happening. We're happy, right? Beaumatin, good morning, Bitcoiners. Bitcoin Deb, good morning, gang. Nolan maybe grabbing his third cup. How did you know it was my third, Bitcoin Deb? How in the heck did you know it was my third? Very good guess. We're going through all the first batch of Space Drop folks today. Yeah, we're going to go. I think it's time to start saying who's in the first trip, right? We've always known Fauci's there. We're going to put Fauci in, but I think I got a good set. It's got to be the people holding up the Fiat system, right? So it's going to have some symbolism. You're actually going to be able to learn about how Fiat worked from the space drop. That's my design. I want to show how Fiat works by who we drop from space. So it's going to be very good. Very good. Today is, we've done some good predicting on this show. This one is going to go down in history. This episode of the Breakup, guys, is going down in history. We're going to actually find out who the first space drop candidates are. I might be wrong, but it's going to be the first global attempt to find out who the first 4 to drop. I say there's a crew of 4, right? Yeah, Fauci's a good contender. He's there. Nah, Trudeau's not in the first one. The thing about Trudeau is his next step is he's going to transition. Everyone sees it, right? He's going to have a whole separate thing of victimhood because he's going to be in a dress and you're like, don't hit women. That's his new thing. It's coming. I'm telling you guys, it's coming. Trudeau transitions. Promised. Promise. Space drop pinata. NC suburban mom. Dang. That would be pretty cool. I think that's a next gen thing, though. Like once the first ones drop and it catches on and people are like, this is entertaining. Who else can we drop? Look what they did to us. Then it might be a pinata one day. Like you put it up and it pops. My God. Because don't forget that I know we are all excited about Elon's rocket technology for space dropping. And I agree. It's very appealing, right? But don't forget, Felix Baumgartner did take a balloon up to space for his drop, right? He took a hot air balloon. So yeah, the pinata thing could work, right? You put them in the tub and then the balloon on top and then poof, and it's a lot like a pinata, right? It was very hard to get this one. It doesn't like you can't, Fauci shocked, Fauci angry, Fauci sad, Fauci yelling, all censored, can't do it. Absolute immediate censorship on the Midjourney. Censorship. It won't produce the result. It has a flag, so it's not exactly censorship, but I'm telling you, Fauci and almost everything. The only way I could get this is Fauci surprised, and then I have to trick it that he's going upwards, that he's flying into space, that he's going up. Every other combo just fail. You can't make fun of Biden. You can't make fun of Fauci. You have to really do your best to make it sound like, oh, he's just a victim of anti-gravity and now he can float. This is like completely reversed. I think the prompt here is Fauci surprised as he's sucked up into space. That's the only way to do it. Totally tricked. Fauci surprised. Anyway, there you go. But we're not here to hear just about how I do prompt engineering, right? You're here to find out all the fake news that happened today, right? But first, we got to acknowledge we've got a sunrise, right? The sun is up. The flag's still down, totally down, but Bitcoin's running. We're doing great. We're doing great. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. All right. Moscow time is always great when we've had a little break here together and when we have a little break and it sort of piles up, right? So I can't even get all to the end of it. I had to cut it off today. But there you go. Tommy says, we are winning so hard, it's annoying. It's gonna get more annoying. We're gonna be doing the college guy face pretty soon when it comes to space drops. You know, the guy who when the college guys didn't want the flag coming down, right? We're gonna be doing that face. That's just how it is, guys. That's just how it is. People drop from space all the time. All right, now you know we like to talk about where it's hot because it's summer. Right, Washington Post letting us know the heat dome that produced a prolonged and brutal bout of heat in Mexico during May. Mexico is hot, don't forget, right? Mexico is hot. Is poised to bring record high temperatures from Arizona to the Pacific Northwest this year, with some of the most intense heat in, where's it hot now? California's interior. Oh my God, California's interior is going to be hot, guys. I got another one. They're warning us now, right? They're warning us in the Washington Post. It's a local thing. Washington Post saying locally why this could be Washington, D.C.'s hottest summer in at least several years, guys. At least several years, guys. It's D.C.'s hottest summer in several years. Now, I know everyone always says D.C. is a super hot sauna shithole sweat place in the summer, but this is going to be the worst in several years. Several. Not one or two, several. Yikes, guys, in DC. Now, I wouldn't go to DC in the summer. I agree. Don't go. All right. If it's too hot, right, you got to run your air conditioners and then you're going to get more global warming. But that's not the only way. The Economist here to let us all know that beef, everyone, beef emits 31 times more carbon dioxide per calorie of food than tofu does. So, you know, tofu, good for the environment. Beef and the farting and the pooping, very bad. By cooking so many cows, humans are cooking themselves too. Guys, you're cooking yourself. Foregoing steaks may be one of the most efficient ways to reduce your carbon footprint. I'm pretty sure I've read this one before. I don't know why it keeps coming back. It's pretty good, though. That's why. So I'm glad they brought up tofu here. I have a great tofu recipe, everyone. I'm sure all of the environmentalists will love it. I had this in Japan once. What they do is they take a little soup bowl, right, a little soup pot. They put the tofu in the middle, but then into the soup pot, right, with the water's going to be boiling soon, right? But you don't start at boiling. What you do is you start at normal lukewarm. I'll tell you why. It's important you start at lukewarm. You start at lukewarm, right, the normal room temperature, and then you put the tofu in the middle. And then what do you do? This is the right way to get tofu delicious, everyone. What you do is you pour in a bunch of minnows, and then you start heating it up. Now, the minnows, they don't want to boil in the water. So what they do is they just start swimming into the tofu because it's a little cooler there. So it's a good way to get the minnows and the saltiness into the tofu, right? And the good news is none of those fish actually burp or fart. So you can boil the fish, the little minnows, alive, right? You can boil them alive and then they go in the tofu, but then you have this really nice tofu salty with the fish, right? So they do that in Japan and it's pretty gross, but at least it's one way to have tofu if you don't like it. If you're worried about the beef farts and the shits and all that stuff, this is a good way to get around it. Okay, we'll see. So eat that tofu. All right, we got more. We got the New York Times now letting us know, right? You switch from the beef to the tofu. So what do you do with the beef, right? And then they say health officials are warning Americans not to drink raw milk as bird flu spreads through cows. Now, I told you the other day we're up to 3 cases in America. That's 1 in 100 million. We're up to 3 cases of bird flu, guys. So pour out all your milk. Pour out 1 in 100 million. You're going to get the bird flu. Health officials are warning Americans not to drink raw milk as bird flu spreads through cows. But some right-wing media figures are misleadingly suggesting that the product is safe or even healthier than traditional milk. And sales are growing. Those fucking people. Is that shark fin broth? How bizarre. Have I ever tasted tofu? Yeah, the tofu, those people, they feed it to, in your Asia, they put the tofu. I hate it. I throw it out all the time. I just leave it. It's disgusting. All right. So here, maybe some good advice, right? They're warning you about alcohol here in the Daily Mail. Drinking alcohol before a flight, then falling asleep in the air could kill you. Heart doctors warn passengers. There you go. Oh, here's another one from the Washington Post. Is eating a lot of salt harmful to your gut? Is eating a lot of salt bad for your gut? Some scientists think so. So all that in mind, right? The tofu's better than beef, right? We heard that. Processed milk better than raw milk. Duh, right? Duh. Too much salt, no good, bad for your gut, they say, right? Well, I don't know about this, but it sounds like it doesn't jive to me, right? It sounds like when I hear processed milk better, tofu better, right? That's great. But what I hear here from the Daily Mail, ultra processed foods do not cause obesity. What? Says U.S. government's top diet advisors in bombshell review of current evidence. Studies have been biased, they say. So, guys, just don't worry. It's just max ultra processed, right? Now, I don't know how you figure out the salt thing they just said, because you got the gut problem. They say the processed food is the salt, but we'll see. We'll see. So just go with the ultra processed foods. They don't cause obesity. Guys, they don't, right? Daily Mail, everybody knows they do not cause obesity. So I'm glad they cleared that up. I'm really glad they cleared that up. Right? I'm really, really glad they cleared that up. It's perfect. Now, I know the whole point of this food is to live longer and to be healthy. We all want to live longer, but it's not from diet. The Guardian has figured it out here, right? In biology, okay? This is the actual answer. It's not the raw milk. It's not the tofu or the beef. It's not the salt, okay? It's not the ultra-processed foods. The real answer to living longer. Well, sorry, it doesn't apply to all of you women, right? But we do know now that, according to Kat Bohannon, right, men and mammals live longer if they cut their nuts off. So just, don't worry about the food. Just cut your nuts off, and you're going to be fine. You'll live long, right? That's how you live long, guys. You cut the nuts off and you do great, right? She's looking like she wants them nuts cut right off you too. So she's like, I'm going to cut your nuts off. Let me see those nuts. So that's what she's up to. She's right though. She's a scientist, guys. She's a scientist. Come on. Oh, we got some. Now, don't let anyone say they're fake news, right? We know where the fake news is. The Washington Post has found it for us, right? I'm not calling the Washington Post fake news. I'm saying they found it for us. Here's where it is. Here's what the Washington Post says. A Kremlin-backed media outlet, right? The Prague-based Voice of Europe. Can't even read it. What? Prague-based. Oh my God. If you guys don't know what the Voice of Europe is, it's obviously American funded, right? Oh, so, sorry, wrong way around. Yeah. Wrong way around. A Kremlin-backed media outlet, the Prague-based Voice of Europe, right? Guess what they did, guys? Guess what they did? You're not going to believe it. They funneled hundreds of thousands of euros to far-right politicians. hundreds of thousands of euros. And what for? What for? Well, we know now that Russia is trying to, this is also from the Washington Post, Russia is trying to undermine the 2024 Paris Olympics through disinformation campaigns that blend old propaganda tactics with artificial intelligence, according to Microsoft. All right, so they're definitely out there funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, guys. That's all it takes. It's just a couple 100,000. Everyone's opinions will change for sure. So good. All right. What else do I got on that stuff? Yeah, I'll get to those ones. This one's good too. Washington Post. Ready? More than 500 non-citizen residents of DC have registered to vote in Tuesday's primary election. Here's why they're casting ballots. What? I thought that was a conspiracy theory. What? Non-citizens voting? Okay, sure. Why not? Who cares, right? Oh, this one's good. This comes from the Hill, right? This comes from the Hill. This is really good fake news. Here we are. This one's great. Why are Americans feeling so negative about the economy? Why? If you read the article, obviously it's because people are too stupid, right? Experts say everything from lingering impacts of a 40-year high inflation to shifting media landscape, right? That's what it is. Shifting media landscape. What? Are behind the persistent divide. So it's the lingering impacts of inflation, right? But it's really the shifting media landscape, right? And what do they mean by that, right? Americans are now, other experts have pointed to a shift in the media landscape and the way that Americans get their news. They're saying that Americans now increasingly get their news from social media platforms. Oh no, which tend to emphasize negativity, says Beth Akers, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Oh, what does Beth say? More than half of US adults said that they sometimes or often get their news from social media. 3 in 10 Americans said they regularly used Facebook for news. Oh my goodness. Closely followed by YouTube, but 26%. Other social media sites frequently used for news include Instagram, TikTok, X. Any potential misunderstandings that people have about inflation may be more relevant in this context, right? Maybe previously people didn't understand inflation perfectly, Beth Akers says. Right? That's what she says, right? She says, Akers pointed to the common misconception that falling inflation will translate into falling prices. No, that's not how it works, Beth says. That's not how it works. Come on. That's not how it works, right? As people are receiving information about inflation, she says, this negative information about the economy in maybe a new and more salient way, it may matter more today than ever before, whether or not they are really getting accurate understanding of how inflation works. She says maybe previously people didn't understand inflation perfectly, but they didn't really need to because need to do so much because they weren't being inundated with these negative ideas about how inflation is affecting them on a day-to-day basis, right? She says, now fast forward, and these misunderstandings may be exacerbated the emotional response because of the way that people are learning about inflation and what it means to their lives. Okay, so guys, it's just because they're reading some people who are fucking stressed out about inflation, and they're having conversations with them, and they're learning from them on the internet. You know, maybe before it didn't matter because there wasn't an internet, but there you go, guys. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, right? All kinds of people getting information from other sources, and it's gonna kill them. Now they're learning about inflation in a whole new way, and they didn't know it wasn't a big deal, right? Before, when they were told it wasn't a big deal, at least they had that information. It was better. It was much better. It was much better, right? Much better. So hopefully it all works out. Hopefully, we'll see. We got more. We got a few more here. Jennifer Rubin from the Washington Post says, Democrats must defend Trump's guilty verdict against the MAGA jury denial. Yeah, that could be it, right? We've also got jury selection for the trial of, so we just heard about her saying, we got to defend, don't make fun of the juries. Don't criticize the New York jury. Don't listen to MAGA about the New York jury. Don't do that, right? Exactly. I mean, here, at least they're getting to like sympathizing with the juries now. It's much better. The Washington Post next article, jury selection for the trial of President Biden's son Hunter on Monday turned into an impromptu but painful indictment of the nation's drug epidemic. With person after person telling the court of their loved one's battle with addiction. I mean, look, here we're finally having sympathy for these juries like we ought to, right? Like we ought to. So Washington Post leading by example. I love it. I love it. Washington Post here. Trump's many dog whistles. This is from Aaron Blake. Aaron Blake is sort of the Phil Bump, the lesser Phil Bump. So Trump's many dog whistles about unrest and violence. The former president's post-conviction comment about a breaking point follows a long line of suggestive comments. The thrust is unmistakable. Thank you, Aaron. And then finally, our final one for today, and it is from Phil Bump. Come on, Phil. It's not every day he gets the best one, so we got to acknowledge, he's in the mix. He's like a good top 10 guy, but it's not every day he actually produces the winner of the race. And today he did it, right? And that's tough because the Why Are Americans Gloomy About the Economy was top shelf, right? Very, very good. Here's what he says. Analysis by Phil Bump. In an interview with Fox News, Donald Trump was asked what he would do to rebuild confidence in institutions, right? Why would he try? Why would he try? And indeed, why would he try? So that's what we got from Moscow time today. That's what we got. Yeah, indeed. So we're going to talk today about basically who's dropping from space, right? Who's dropping? I think we have, and here's the way I want the symbolism to go with the space drops, right? This is what we need to do. What we need to do is the pillars of Fiat must fall, right? That's my theme. The pillars of Fiat. So Fauci falls first, Fiat follows. Now, if Fauci goes down first, what you're getting is the expert class and all these guys just dropping, right? And we have plenty of reason now. This is what we learned from Fauci yesterday testifying in Congress. It was beautiful. It was amazing, right? Not in a way that would satisfy. There's no dunking on him or anything in the way that you'd like. The corruption was just excellent, right? Just perfect to see the cover, the uniparty, and everything like that. And even the blatant denials of stuff, right? The blatant denials. It's just perfect. So Colin Rugg with an excellent breakdown of David Sachs. David Sachs yesterday went after Fauci for this testimony. So this is what we learned. David Sachs explains exactly how Fauci orchestrated the pandemic and knowingly lied to the American public to protect his own ass. If there's one thing you should watch today, this is it. During the All-In pod, Sachs explains how Fauci purposefully misled the American public to protect himself. They knew right away that COVID came from a lab leak, and Fauci and Collins said in emails that they were going to begin a brutal takedown in order to conceal this fundamental truth of the lab leak from the public. Now, why would Fauci need to conceal this? Because he had funded gain-of-function research programs to conduct gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Fauci was personally responsible for reversing an Obama-era decision to prohibit gain-of-function research because it was so risky. Fauci funded gain-of-function research. He was personally responsible for lifting the ban on gain-of-function research. He had a lot of reasons to want to hide the fact that COVID was engineered in a lab leak and was engineered in a lab and was a lab leak. Longtime colleague of Fauci and Collins at NIH, Dr. David Morenz developed a strategy for evading Freedom of Information requests that would expose the truth. He did this by deleting government emails, which is a crime, by using private email to conduct government business, which is also a crime, and then strategically misspelling names and titles to frustrate the FOIA searches. To recap, Fauci aggressively pursued gain-of-function research and was responsible for funding the Wuhan lab while others warned of the dangers. The virus then leaked from the lab, leading to trillions of dollars in debt, which will paralyze our economy for decades into the future, deaths, suicides, etc. Fauci and others were paraded around as heroes. Trump was ridiculed for pushing the lab leak theory. Instead of admitting the lab leak, Fauci and other doctors did all they could to cover it up. To top it off, many scientists accepted millions of dollars in royalties from the vaccine, and we found out it was some absurd number of royalties, right? I think I have the actual number. Yeah, it comes from just from yesterday. This comes from Adam Andrajewski. I don't know in which paper, but what we found out here is that NIH scientists made 710 million US shitcoins in royalties from drug makers, a fact they tried to hide. So this is a comment from the article. New data from National Institutes of Health reveals the agency and its scientists collected $710 million in royalties during the pandemic from late 2021 through 2023. So what we learned from that article and what we've learned from others is that the whole Fauci thing and everything he's done, even the distancing, he said yesterday he made up most of this stuff, right? We had Clandestine saying the reason Fauci made up 6-foot social distancing and mask wearing was to make citizens fear being close together to another. They needed the public to fear voting in person. This opened the door to justify implementing mass mail-in voting, which the deep state then used. Ben says, or the reason they made 6-foot voting social distancing was to make in-person voting impossible without the spacing logistics to voter lines. And that rule's universal adoption forced the approval of the universal mass mail-in ballots that amazingly flipped the election result. We've been saying that for a long time, right? We've been saying that for a long time. So again, Fauci, I think, is one of the great symbols and is one of the reasons we need to shock the world and put on a display that no one can deny, right? You can't, at this point, and I don't mean today, but I mean when all this works itself through the system and we're in a place of reconciling what happened. Because of course, history is written by the winners, right? We can't, if we lose this one, you even see this guy who's doing history, that Michael Beckclose or whatever his name, he's doing history on one of these shit networks. And he's a historian coming out to tell you that Trump's indictment is the first in history. And he's trying to tell you how relevant it is to the present. So you have this stupid historian telling you about the current fake news. I mean, how more useless can you get than that, right? So what we need is a real way to turn people's attention, to rewrite the history books. And that's why I continue to believe that it's not just executions. And I don't mean it as a joke, guys. Public executions that I think will happen, right? They will happen. Now, one of my predictions continues to be that Trump, I never believed that RFK was going to be a vice president. It just doesn't make sense, right? But RFK, if Trump is president, could get his dad's old job. With the rump that's left of the Democrat Party, there's going to have to be stuff like this happens. And I do believe that Kennedy will inherit the Democrat Party as it is, destroyed, disillusioned. He'll be the only Democrat worth a damn and the only Democrat left to try to rebuild what's going on. I think that's healthy, right? I think that's healthy. I think Kennedy can destroy the Democrat Party as it is in the same way that Trump destroyed the Republican Party as it was. And so Kennedy doing this, taking a job in the Trump administration, taking his daddy's old job in the Trump administration, would be designed to do exactly what I'm talking about here. Public executions of the criminals and traitors who were involved in COVID and everything else that touched on that. And the number one person, in my opinion, the first ticket to whatever they choose to have as a public execution, the first ticket is for Fauci. And I believe you're going to have someone like RFK prosecuting this as Attorney General in a bipartisan manner, right? I think that's his only, maybe it's not Attorney General, but he's a special prosecutor of COVID crimes or something like that. But you need a bipartisan squad, right? You need a bipartisan squad. And I do believe this is one of the weaknesses of Trump, right? Trump got rolled by these experts. He got rolled by Fauci. It's something we can't forget, right? But one who didn't is RFK, as he continues to point out. And I think he's right to point this out. And I think he needs to get a lot of attention, and no matter what happens in the next administration, in order to be the person who is actually prosecuting these folks. The real Anthony Fauci book that he wrote before he ended up joining this campaign is absolutely perfect, right? And I think he knows a lot of these Hollywood guys, so we can get someone like Tom Cruise to host this kind of thing, because it's got to be tied up in the whole pharmaceutical industry. We have to drop the pharmaceutical industry from space, right? Not just Fauci, right? The whole thing's got to go. So Tom Cruise is your ideal host. Tom Cruise is the guy that is talking to Fauci in this picture, and it's Tom Cruise going, see ya, bye, have fun, it's going to be great. So there you go. we got this whole thing going on. But, I feel like there's at least 4 seats in the first space drop. And those 4 seats are sort of the pillars of Fiat. And I talk about them all the time. What propagates Fiat, right? How does Fiat propagate? Well, Fiat propagates from the top-down credentialism that's inherent to the system, right? So top-down thinking, experts say, what that ends up doing is it gets repackaged and recycled by the media, who's always citing the experts, so that the cognitive closure of experts say can be implemented. Experts say, and then it sort of mutes people's thinking, right? So Fauci, I think, easy, right? That's an easy one. But we got more. Who else is going to drop? Well, this is the good news, right? We got a lot of good things happening here. So with the trial, with the Trump trial, in the end, it looks like the mistake that was made with pursuing all this stuff hasn't even really been fully gauged yet, right? Scott Adams talking about it here, saying Democrats solved Trump's biggest political problems. They proved the legal system can completely control him, no dictator risk. They prove there is no secret MAGA army waiting to be activated. You would have heard from them by now. And best of all, they generated massive empathy for Trump. If they can do it to me, is powerful. Trump's campaign funding is solved. Republican animal spirits have never been higher. This is the biggest political mistake in American history. And indeed, you're starting to see it play out, right? Yesterday, you've got Jim Jordan for the House Judiciary, who's now submitted legislative proposals to defund Jack Smith, Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, Letitia. No money for the FBI headquarters. Mike Benz saying, let's fucking go. Could have done this a year ago. Should have done this a year ago. Should have never allowed any legitimacy from Jump Street. But okay, we're alive. Let's go. So you're going to start to see these people, the reverse of it. So I can say that there's people from these prosecutions, from these fake prosecutions, that got a drop. Now, Fanny is too stupid. Letitia, she's cross-eyed and dumb. Stupid face of hers, right? Alvin Bragg is a good one, right? He's a good one. I think he's got the extra round face. He'll look really funny in a jumpsuit. But I got to go with Jack Smith. The reason I'm going with Jack Smith is because I think Fanny, Alvin, and Letitia are all stupid. And it's an incompetency problem. Right. So because it's an incompetency problem, it's not really the kind of person you want to drop. You want to just let them go. And, maybe you put the 3 of them on like a reality TV show that involves some kind of, let's see what happens if we lock them in a prison together, and we'll see, it could get cool. I think we got to be entertained by their stupidity. Watch them try and figure stuff out. Right. And like secret cameras. We got to put a lot of these people into like some form of reality TV cage where we can really laugh at their mental state and just be entertaining. Watching these people who gaslit, who lied, and were not quite smart enough, watch them try to figure out what's going on once they're put into some kind of system that will force them to come up with the conclusions or stay, in these environments. But the one who's got to go is Jack Smith. I put Jack Smith on my first flights. He's on my first space drop. It's different than Fauci. You need one symbol of treason. I think he's perfect. He comes from the blackmail world. Jack Smith was a blackmailer in a former life. That's why he did the job. There's probably so much stuff on Jack Smith that I think the general population, when they find out, will be totally okay with him dropping, just like Fauci, right? You need the vast majority of the population to want to see these people fall, to be like, yeah, I want splatter. I want, because one of the reasons why space dropping is such a good way of doing this is because there's so many different data points that people can latch on to, like hang time, but splatter zone is one of my favorites. Like how far and in what size would their impact zone be? Like, would there be a crater? Would how far would parts fly and different substances from the meat bag fly? Where would it go? I mean, people want to know, right? Can they get close to a target? I think you should put some targets there because, again, that would get the betting markets going. You want the betting people, you want the betting public to really get involved, right? You want to see all the bookies. I don't think Fauci, I think the hang time is going to be quick and the splatter zone is going to be off, not going to hit the target. It's a bonus target, right, for a lottery or something like that. So it'll be great, right? So Jack Smith, he needs to be the pillar of the broken judiciary system. So we get one from the broken, citation. I guess it's kind of like the media when you're going after Fauci, because you're going after that mimetic use of experts say, right? So that's a part of it. That's an important one. Jack Smith, it's for the treason, right? So the treason is a big part. Fauci, it's crimes against humanity, and then the other one, it's treason. So those will all be good, right? Those ones are really, really important. Let me see who else I got here on my list, right? I got more. Oh yeah, Kim.com saying this. The fall of Fauci, COVID-19 is officially exposed as a U.S. government project, a virus engineered by U.S. scientists using a biolab in China for cover. The biggest crime against humanity, killed more victims than the Nazi Holocaust against the Jews. Demand justice, right? So Fauci's a big one, right? Definitely a big one. And you had a doctor there, and they were going on about it and all that stuff. Now the next one, right? The next one starts to get into territory that is touchy, let's say, right? And that's media. And it's touchy because we're talking about the Washington Post itself, right? So when I say here that when I say here that the pillars of Fiat fall next, right? Fauci falls, and then the pillars of Fiat. So judiciary, already we've got a candidate, right? Jack Smith. This shows just how corrupted the system was. Now I say, Merrick Garland is on the watch too, right? Merrick Garland, he's getting he's telling the House, because he's getting subpoenaed, the Attorney General getting subpoenaed. He says U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland will take aim on Tuesday at Donald Trump's Republican allies in the House of Representatives, where he will accuse them peddling false narratives that endanger law enforcement and undermine the Justice Department's integrity. And he says he will not be intimidated. So he's also a candidate alongside Jack Smith. I'm not sure which one would fit it more, right? I feel like Merrick Garland, because he might have friends in the Supreme Court, they might avoid it, right? So I don't know if he ends up getting, but you've got to get the media. You've got to get a candidate from the media. Fauci is one. Now, with Fauci, it's not that he's a media darling, right? Or not that he's from the media. It's that he's a media darling, right? And that they cite his expert, all that stuff. But we need someone from the actual media. And this is where things get a little complicated for us, because indeed, I would say that Jeff Bezos has to be on the list. I mean, he hasn't come to Bitcoin yet, right? Why is that? He continues to want to lose millions and millions of dollars funding the Washington Post. Now, I said Jack Smith is a blackmailer, right? But the weakness of being blackmailed must be accounted for as well, right? You must account for the weakness of being blackmailed. I don't like the blackmail thing, and I have sympathy for people who are getting blackmailed for sure, right? It changes your thoughts. And in the case of Bezos, right, there's no other way to explain what's going on other than he made a mistake years ago, got involved with these people out of patriotism, and now he's left with it. But at a certain point, I think Bezos, owner of the Washington Post, has to back away from it and take responsibility for what's going on, right? Otherwise, what you end up getting is a situation where we just don't know. We just don't know why he continues to go along with this terrible business idea. Now, it can't be for business reasons. We can conclude by now that Jeff Bezos is not into losing hundreds of millions of dollars a year, right? 78 million last year, 100 million the year before, or hundreds of millions of dollars over years in order to get into this new up and coming business called newspapers, right? There's a reason why he's doing it. What's the reason? I have no idea. I have no clue, obviously. I have no idea if he is getting blackmailed, but I can find no other explanation. There might be one. There might be a very simple one, and that would take him out of my running. If he starts abandoning this stuff and starts taking credit for what's going on and acknowledges and takes responsibility for what's going on and distances himself from the Washington Post, he's got a chance. He's got a chance, right? If he doesn't do that, well, then he won't go up on his own rocket, put it that way, right? There's going to have to be, he's going to have to take a ride on someone else's rocket, and it's not going to be fun for him. It doesn't matter if he's the richest guy or one of the richest guys, and he's just into books, and he was a nerd before, and now he's all gassed up. That guy's got choices to make. They're important choices, and I don't know if the money saves him this time. Now, I like the guy. I do. I really do. I hope he does get away from all this trouble. But we're going to find out, because it turns out that what they're going to be doing over in what they're doing over in the Justice Department, or in the House, which one is it? Let me see. Yeah, so it's America First Legal, right? So America First Legal is going to be going into all kinds of investigations between the Manhattan DA, communications with the different people in the court cases that are against Trump, but also how it's related to the media. And I think if it comes out that there was collusion between the media and someone like Jennifer Rubin, right, you're going to start to see it come out. This is what we found out yesterday from the Washington Post, right? Because I guess this guy, the publisher William Lewis, was talking. WAPO boss sounds alarm over dwindling audience and heated staff meeting. People are not reading your stuff. Let's not sugarcoat it. We are losing large amounts of money, Washington Post publisher said. Well, how can that be, right? How can it be? Jennifer Rubin here is saying that if Democrats win the White House and the majorities in the House and the Senate, they will remove the filibuster, impeach Justice Alito, and pack the Supreme Court, right? What they're saying is this could include Alito's impeachment, especially if he snubs a subpoena, a mandatory ethics code, Supreme Court term limits, and court expansion. If need be, Democrats would need to adjust the too long abused filibuster to attend the job of fixing a disgraced court. So Jennifer Rubin here is saying the court is disgraced. She's talking about 5 ways to respond to Alito's contemptuous letter. So she's going after the Supreme Court here, right? Jennifer Rubin for the Washington Post going after the Supreme Court. Is this just too stupid, or does she believe this stuff, right? Is she stupid and believe this stuff, or is it something worse? Is it malice? Hard to say in her case, right? But she is a leading candidate along with Phil Bump for something from the Washington Post to fall from space. It's not enough that they're put out of business. It's not enough that they lose $100 million. Either the blackmailer in chief gets in trouble, or the blackmailed in chief gets it, or one of their more one of their more contemptuous writers gets it, right? So it's got to be something from the media. So we've got Fauci from the institutions, from the experts, right? We've got Jack or Garland from the legal system, totally in disrepute. And now we've got someone from the media, right? So we're getting close. We're getting close. We're getting close. Now, next, we've got to get into the final candidate, right? The final candidate. So we've got, as I said, we've got someone from the expert class. We've got someone from the judiciary. We've got someone from the media. We're still missing someone from the deep state, right? We're missing someone who is actually a part of the apparatus, someone who's actually part of this stuff. And we got plenty of candidates. I'll take this from a muse, which goes into something that I've long understood, which was the Sidney Powell, that she got rolled by the deep state in a color revolution, right? All that stuff about Venezuela. We knew at the time already, in the days after the 2020 election, that she was getting rolled. Unfortunately, she didn't understand what was happening. This is what a muse says. What if the United States was the victim of a color revolution orchestrated by the intelligence community in 2020? There is compelling evidence suggesting sophisticated election fraud occurred in at least 6 swing states, and that January 6th was a setup designed to prevent any investigation or congressional challenge to the election. The U.S. intelligence community anticipated widespread disbelief in the election outcome and targeted a handful of influencers to disseminate false election fraud information. One such influencer was attorney and author Sidney Powell, who gained prominence for exposing DOJ malfeasance and was platformed by Rush Limbaugh. The intelligence community knew she was already skeptical of the DOJ and the so-called deep state. With Rush Limbaugh promoting her book to this massive audience, she became the perfect target. Powell was fed a constant stream of disinformation from intelligence assets, including bribery schemes involving Georgia's governor and Secretary of State, and claims that Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez was involved with Dominion voting machines. The information she received was so damning that she famously told Rush she was about to release the Kraken. Eventually, it became clear she fell victim to an intelligence community disinformation campaign designed to discredit her and anyone who repeated her claims. Over the coming days and weeks, I'll add to this thread. So he's going on about what was going on with that thing. So indeed, the color revolution, right? If you watched the events of January 6th and suspected they were orchestrated by members of our intelligence community, then it's not a leap to consider that these same forces would have manipulated swing states in the 2020 election. Many of us have struggled to understand who orchestrated these actions, effectively staging a cover revolution in America. The truth, however, has been evident since the 2016 election and the topic of this second installment of my color revolution thread. We have long known that John Brennan, former CIA director, formed a secret task force in 2016 that included analysts and officers from the CIA, NSA, and FBI. The task force was tasked with investigating then candidate Donald Trump's campaign. Members were handpicked by Brennan, and required to sign new non-disclosure agreements, ensuring their actions remained covert and classified even to this day. The involvement of foreign intelligence agents from MI6 and Ukrainian intelligence further highlights the extent of the operation. The same task force, which has been active since 2016, was still active until at least 2021. It may have been and it may even be active now. We know most of the members are still in the intelligence community. So the 51 spies who lied, that's who we're talking about here. Now, I don't know if it's all 51, but Brennan's got to go. Brennan's got to go, right? And the reason why Brennan's got to go is because he's attached to the military apparatus, the deep state. Someone's got to drop from the deep state military apparatus. And for many reasons, right? For many reasons, the lying, the manipulation, the gaslighting, but most importantly, the way in which the lack of focus from the military on domestic messaging and domestic brainwashing has actually left U.S. forces abroad completely vulnerable in a way that I predicted for a long time, and it's happening now, which is the aircraft carriers and all that other stuff. What did I say 2 years ago? That we would see a beautiful U.S. aircraft carrier melt into the sea because of drone warfare, right? Without any eye on the ball, without any focus on what's going on with actual risks that U.S. soldiers face in the theater of war around the world. This is what we get. The Yemeni Armed Forces announced the targeting of the USS Eisenhower aircraft carrier for the second time, as well as the targeting of a U.S. destroyer in the Red Sea and 4 operations which targeted ships in the Indian Ocean, Red Sea, and Arabian Sea. So my prediction of one of these things coming down is pretty close. So you need someone who is not a civilian. Now, I know Brennan he's technically not a member of the military, right? So maybe he is a civilian. I don't know. Anyway, that motherfucker's got to drop. Right? He's got to drop. So that's the list. That's the list. And if you see, it's this, military apparatus, it's the media, it's the legal experts, it's the judiciary, and those are the pillars of the Fiat system. And each of them will have someone who will fall, and each of those falls will actually take the bottom out of Fiat and the top will come down. It's top heavy, right? So if you cut the bottom out, if you cut those 4 legs off of Fiat, off of the US dollar, it can't survive. And that's where we're at, cutting the legs off and starting something new. So yeah, the prediction on the aircraft carrier, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time, right? There is an aircraft carrier, and that nobody wants to see it. Absolutely no one wants to see that, right? But it's what's happening. So it's not a choice, right? We don't get to choose these things. All right, let's see what the folks are saying. Who wants a seat on the Space Drop Referral Committee? I think it's everyone on X. I think everyone on X gets a seat on that. Yeah, so Bezos looks reptilian to me. The only reason he hasn't come to Bitcoin this year, in my opinion. Splatter zone patterns. That's pretty funny. Splatter zone betting. What are your thoughts on Trump's? No, Trump did great, and he's getting really excellent advice, as far as I can tell. Back then, I found it weird. This guy was right away. The common sense. I knew this guy was straight up BS. Edmund saying about Fauci. Yeah, he's pretty scummy. Pretty scummy guy. I don't eat motor oil. Fake news award. They hate us. Yeah. Have you ever? Yeah, I've tasted tofu, and as I said, it's disgusting. Bitcoin Deb saw a field of tofu farting the other day. Yikes. Yeah. Interior of California is hot. It is. It is. It is. It is. All right, team. That's what I got for today. That's all I got. I hope you all have a great day, and I shall see you all later. Huh? Have another sip of the coffee. All right, team. Peace.